We'll listen to the biography of the late president, and that will be read by Eric Beho. After which the mass choir will give us some music.
The biography of J.J. Rawlings, abridged version. He fulfilled his purpose, former President of the Republic of Ghana, first President of the Fourth Republic. He who lives only unto himself withers and dies, while he who forgets himself in the service of others grows and blossoms in life and in eternity. G. Hinckley. Duty, decency, accountability, social justice, human rights, dignity. These are all values that former President J.J Rawlings not only held in high esteem, but practiced every day during his time on earth. A towering and transcendent figure in African politics, former head of state and president of the Republic of Ghana, Flight Lieutenant J.J Rawlings is admired widely on the continent of Africa and internationally for his patriotism, sincerity, drive, and participatory leadership approach. J.J Rawlings was many things. He was an officer, a pilot, a husband, and a father. He was a revolutionary, a hero, and a philanthropist. He was a celebrated statesman, and he was a former president of the Republic of Ghana. Collectively, these are all the titles and duties of a life that has been well lived. But no single title captures his most important contribution as a public servant. Above all, J.J Rawlings was a man of the people, a selfless man who gave his life willingly in service to the ordinary Ghanaian. His life's work was not to champion the causes of those with wealth or power or special connections. It was to give a voice to those who were not heard. The strength of J.J Rawlings was his sincere dedication to the cause of the working poor and oppressed masses. Quote, "For myself, I am ready for whatever sacrifices are required in such a struggle for a better life for our people, and I will forever work with and be at the service of the people who share that common cause," unquote. He was given the gift of empathy and was able to humbly feel for and show compassion for the pain and suffering of others. The sick child who could not see a doctor, or the young soldier denied his basic human rights. He understood the language of the people, and he articulated it with all conviction and empathy. By calling on workers, soldiers, farmers, policemen, teachers, and students to raise their consciousness. Known for his anti-corruption credentials, J.J Rawlings was a profound and fearless advocate for social justice, accountability, and the political and socio-economic empowerment of Ghana's people. He eventually made his mark on the world by committing to a purpose much bigger than himself. For J.J Rawlings, that meant answering the highest of callings, which was serving his country in a time of extreme deprivation. Throughout his life, President J.J Rawlings used his gift to touch as many lives and right as many wrongs as the years would allow. Early life and education. Jerry John Rawlings was born on June 22, 1947, in Accra, Ghana. He was first named Jeremiah Rawlings John and was baptized Roman Catholic. His father, James Ramsey John, a pharmacist from Scotland, migrated to the Gold Coast, Ghana in 1935 to work and become head of the Kingsway Chemists. His mother, Madame Victoria Abutri, from Jelokupe in the Volta region, was the head of the catering department at the State House. Raised by his mother, she wanted her son to be a doctor, but at the young age of 6, Rawlings recalled telling his mother that he wanted to be a pilot. He enrolled in the prestigious Achimota School in 1961, where he was very active in the school choir and Red Cross. He also excelled at the Cadet Corps, which suited his no-nonsense and disciplined personality. It was therefore not a surprise to his classmates when he joined the Ghana Air Force. Jerry Rawlings was also one student who stood up to bullies and described by his year group as someone who always looked out for the weak and vulnerable and defended them. With his sole passion for flying, Jerry Rawlings enlisted as a flight cadet of the Ghana Air Force after Achimota in August 1967, and was subsequently selected for officer cadet training at the Ghana Military Academy and Training School in Teshi, Accra, when he enlisted as a flight cadet at the age of 20. Jerry's surname was changed from John to Rawlings. Assuming John to be a second Christian name, the Air Force administration made a clerical error and recorded Rawlings as his surname. He has been known ever since as Jerry John Rawlings. As part of his ongoing training, he was posted to the Takoradi Air Force Base in the Western region in 1968, where he subsequently advanced and became a commissioned pilot officer of the Ghana Air Force in January 1969, and was awarded the Distinguished Speedbird Trophy for his outstanding airmanship. He got posted to No. 1 Transport Squadron for his operational conversion and training on the DHC Otter aircraft. In June 1970, Jerry Rawlings was posted to the Communications Squadron, Air Force Station Accra, as a squadron pilot flying the Beaver aircraft. And shortly after, in December 1970, he was then reposted to No. 1 Squadron, Air Force Station, Takoradi, to continue with his operational duties as a squadron pilot on the Beaver and Otter aircraft. Just a month after January 1971, Jerry John Rawlings was interviewed and selected to join the prestigious No. 4 Fighter Squadron at the Air Force Station in Accra. He began his conversion and operational training on the MB-326F aircraft, and in April 1972, he was appointed Station Adjutant to the commanding officer of the Air Force Station Accra, and appointed officer in charge of the station's Operation Feed Yourself project, the flagship project of General Achampong's National Redemption Council. A natural workaholic and one who enjoyed working in the outdoors, Jerry John Rawlings took this responsibility very seriously and dedicated all of his off-duty hours to this task. He was a natural leader, so it came second nature to him to motivate the officers and men under his command to participate actively in the project. He single-handedly operated the station's tractor to plow all arable lands on the Air Force Station, which earned him the admiration of the officers and especially the airmen. His dedication to the project yielded a bumper harvest, which was short-lived when the mode of distribution was deemed most inequitable, much to the utmost dissatisfaction of the young officer. The majority of the harvest went to the commanding officer, which was a common practice in the Ghana Army at the time. He openly expressed his dissatisfaction when approached by the commanding officer with the order, "My boot is open, fill it." His utterances earned him the respect and endeared him to the hearts of the officers and especially the airmen. This singular event in his career propelled him as a unique and empathetic leader who cared for the welfare of his men and the downtrodden. In June 1973, J.J Rawlings was reposted to the No. 4 Fighter Squadron to continue and complete his operational training on the Air Macquis aircraft. The training was made up of general formation flying and combat, as well as tactical formation flying to include air-to-ground firing at the Bundasi range. This included live firing with rockets, strafing, high-angle bombing, and skip bogging at the Gambaga live firing range. After these operations, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings gained his combat readiness certification. J.J Rawlings was a highly skilled and efficient officer with a close rapport with his men, which earned him the rank of Flight Lieutenant in April 1978. By then, he had married his childhood sweetheart and longtime girlfriend, Nana Ajiman, in 1977, at a wedding held at Red Church. The young couple will soon welcome their first child, whom he named Zanetta, meaning, "Let the darkness end," in his mother tongue, Ewe. The name symbolized a call to the end, to end the economic and social misery that Ghana was undergoing. This signified his personal hope that the state of decay would stop. In spite of economic hardships and a new family to provide for, J.J Rawlings maintained his gift of giving. After June 4th, 1979, the couple's home went from their little oasis to an unofficial refuge for people that believed in J.J Rawlings' ideals. Rawlings returned to power in December 31st, 1981, thrust the young couple into a political trajectory where Nana Konadu, a young First Lady, saw an opportunity to contribute to rebuilding Ghana through the development of women, politically and socio-economically. After the birth of Zanetta, the young couple went on to have 3 more children, with each one named after an African freedom fighter, Ya Asante of the Asante Empire, Princess Amina of Sokoto and Zaria, and Kimati of the Kikuyu people, a strong indication of his political ideals and that we have a duty to fight for what is just, even at the cost of our own lives. Early political career. When J.J Rawlings became head of state of Ghana in 1981, he inherited the worst economy in the nation's history. Food and fuel were scarce. Store shelves were empty, and people had to queue for hours just to buy a tin of milk or a loaf of bread. Every Ghanaian was affected by increasing food shortages and long bread queues. In the rural areas outside of Accra, people lived in dire deprivation, but perhaps better than those in Accra's growing slum areas, which often had unpaved, potholed roads, lacked electricity or sanitation, and offered the unskilled poor no way of bettering their lot. In a string of setbacks that would have broken a lesser man and would have been easy for Rawlings to retreat from public life and live out his years in peaceful quiet. But that was not Jerry Rawlings. This is where he showed his character, his patriotism, his faith, and his endurance in the worst of possible circumstances. Throughout the 1980s, Jerry Rawlings led the country through the difficult years of economic recovery. In 1983, he initiated the Economic Recovery Program, ERP, a pragmatic economic program to reverse Ghana's collapsed economy and subsequently revive the financial health of the country in order to generate positive economic growth. After several years, the ERP's successful implementation restored international confidence in Ghana and in turn succeeded in restoring national pride in Ghanaians. With unwavering determination, Jerry Rawlings brought government closer to the people by reintegrating the grassroots, including market women, fishermen, informal workers, and other urban poor and working class people into national politics. He encouraged citizens to participate in local governance through the People Defense Committees, PDCs, established by the PNDC to mobilize the masses and hold politicians accountable for their actions. Rawlings' primary objective was the institutionalization of the system of participatory governance that allows, in his words, people at the local level to determine their own development priorities, generate financial resources locally, and control the use to which those resources are put. Our objective is to end, once and for all, the parasitic relationship that enables the urban elite not only to live off the sweat of the rural dweller, but to dictate to him the conditions of his existence. Today, this works through district assemblies with decision-making powers, ensuring that Ghanaians at the grassroots level take part in decisions, making a national development. He oversaw the rebuilding of the nation's infrastructure and writing of a new constitution. After the re-establishment of multi-party democracy, he founded the National Democratic Congress and was democratically elected the first president of Ghana's Fourth Republic in 1992. His term witnessed massive decentralization reforms, a growing middle class, privatization schemes, and a proliferating private media. Development policies under Rawlings. Jerry Rawlings focused on implementing human-centered development policies in order to improve the health, nutritional status, and longevity of Ghanaians, where almost 40% of total public expenditure was allocated to education and the health sector alone. The ultimate aim was to create a socially equitable system of health for Ghanaians. In the area of rural development, vigorous and comprehensive rural development programs were realized. Electrification, which was available to less than 20% of Ghana's population, was extended to all 10 regions at the time and every district. While embarking on rural development programs policies were implemented to expand Ghana's middle-income group. With food security a priority for Rawlings, agricultural policies were initiated that resulted in the recognition of Ghana's food production growth of 148% for the period between 1995 to 1997, as the third highest achievement on the record after Jordan, 157%, and China, 156%, in the World Bank's 1999 to 2000 development report. Aggressive policies were implemented to support Ghana's traditional export industries, such as gold and cocoa, and also to diversify its export content. In 1994, Ghana Investment Promotion Center was created to encourage and promote investment in Ghana. Export initiatives were put in place to increase the supply of non-traditional exports through the establishment of export production villages, EPV, and systematic market research. As part of the government's policy to attract viable foreign direct investment to Ghana, the Free Zone Scheme was implemented in 1997. This was an extensive and generous incentive package for investors interested in developing and operating free zone enclaves in single factory free zones in Ghana. International relations. Under President Rawlings, Ghana remained committed to peace and stability within Africa and internationally through its pursuance of a policy of good neighborliness along the country's common borders. This was consistent with Ghana's commitment to peace and stability and crucial to the social economic development of Ghanaians. While strengthening ties with progressive movements worldwide, especially members of the non-aligned movement, and providing support to the African struggle, he restored relations with Western nations as well as China and Japan. To enhance trade and economic cooperation between Ghana and other nations, President Rawlings undertook investment tours to the West, emerging economies of Asia, and within the African continent as well. He, however, criticized the global system as inequitable, emphasizing that developing economies that are operating free market systems are not deriving maximum benefit from the global free market system. He spoke passionately about international political morality and inequalities, and never hesitated to criticize the savagery of capitalism whenever he had the opportunity. Within the sub-region, President Rawlings contributed tremendously to conflict resolution and political stability in countries such as Rwanda, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. Under his leadership, the Ghana Armed Forces regained its reputation as one of the finest and most disciplined forces in military operations around the world. His special interest in the armed forces can be credited to his early career in the Ghana Armed Forces, where he showed exceptional skill and acumen while proving himself as a distinguished fighter pilot. His experience as a military strategist was a major contributory factor to Ghana's record in conflict resolution in the sub-region. This was observed in 1994 when he became the ECOWAS chairman during the Liberian Civil War. Under his chairmanship, the Akosombo Accord and Accra Peace Agreements were signed. Post-presidency, elder statesman. After 2 terms in office, President Rawlings stepped down and handed over to his elected successor on January 7, 2001, reinforcing Ghana's transition to a stable, multi-party democracy. Later that year, he was appointed as the first United Nations eminent person for international volunteerism, helping to raise the profile of millions of volunteers working for peace and development around the world. As a former head of state, J.J Rawlings refused to embrace traditional retirement. After leaving office, he maintained a strong international presence as an advocate of peace, security, and social injustice. In October 2020, the African Union appointed him as the AU High Representative for Somalia to mobilize the continent and the rest of the international community to fully assume its responsibilities and contribute more actively to the quest for peace, security, and reconciliation in Somalia. Through negotiations with the Somali leadership, politicians, and neighboring countries, Jerry Rawlings managed to get the parties to embrace the transitional roadmap. By October 2011, President Rawlings was also appointed Ambassador of the Pan-African Parliament. Through active engagement at various forums from Addis Ababa to Djibouti, through Istanbul to London to Nairobi, President Rawlings worked to ensure that various interest groups in the Somali political climate reached consensus on bringing the traditional period to an end. To this end, President Rawlings is recognized for his statesmanship and dedicated service to restoring peace and security in Somalia. Later life philanthropy. President Rawlings dedicated most of his retirement years to philanthropy. He focused on supporting the underprivileged by providing support towards medical care, the payment of school fees, and issues of accommodation and personal welfare. In March 2017, the former president funded the spinal correction surgery of Maxwell Agoso, a young boy who had a serious spinal abnormality that threatened to cut his life short because of the pressure brought to bear on his heart. Rawlings also solicited funding for young Naomi Gomeshi's life-saving heart surgery at the Kolobu Teaching Hospital. The former president was also passionate about nature and deeply interested in matters of the environment when he was in office. He would personally join voluntary groups to desil drains and prevent diseases like Brody ulcer and guinea worm. The passion never waned, and on countless occasions, he expressed concern about the hacking down of trees to construct concrete buildings and the failure of Ghanaians to embrace tree planting as an environmentally progressive policy. In a note he penned on the environment for a magazine in 2013, President Rawlings wrote, "Nature is the only true friend I have. I have always derived so much comfort and serenity from her. The loyalty, trust, and integrity of Mother Nature has never been in doubt. If only our greed and lust for power had not demeaned us, the life of Mother Nature and the environment would be hanging perilously in the balance. If I could live my life again and again, I would still spend it trying to protect her. My profession as a pilot would have been empty without the beauty and wonder of the landscape. Mother Nature and the environment made me a more responsible person. My relationship with nature and the environment is too spiritual for a sentence piece." On his 70th birthday in 2017, a symposium on the environment was held in his honor under the theme, "Protecting and Safeguarding the National Environment for Generations." Conclusion. Jerry Rawlings has gone home now, leaving those of us who grieve his passing with the memories he left behind, the good that he did, the sacrifices he made, and the dreams he kept alive. We are forever grateful for his courage and conviction, his humanity, and his compassion for others. But above all, we love Jerry Rawlings for what he represented: a determination to succeed against the odds, humility, an innate sense of social justice, and a tremendous sense of service to country. He gave to himself with intelligence and energy and devotion to duty. In the words of William Shakespeare, "I have touched the highest point of all my greatness. And from that full meridian of my glory, I haste now to my setting. J.J Rawlings, your work on earth is done, and your life and legacy will be an enduring reminder that a life of service is a life well and greatly lived. May God bless J.J Rawlings, and may he rest in eternal peace.
You built your barrier, the taller I become. Yeah, the further you take my rights away, yeah, the faster I will run. You can deny me, you can decide to turn your face away. No matter how, there's something inside so strong. Oh yeah, I can make it. All of my pride was gone. Oh yeah. My voice, yeah, louder I will sing, yeah. You hide behind walls of Jericho, your lies will come tumbling, yeah. Deny my place in time, turn the world that's mine, my life will shine so brightly, it will blind you to fair. Oh, the sound in the sun is gone. I can take it. Oh, you do me wrong. But my bride was gone. Yeah, brothers and sisters, we are not good enough. Yeah, yeah. When we know better, just look them in the eyes and say, we're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway.
That is a musical interlude. Now, the next tribute that would happen
would be tribute by wife, that is Nana Kunedu, Her Excellency Nana Kunedu J.J Rawlings, and we're expecting the tribute to be read by Amina Rawlings.
We'll take the first tribute, and that is by Her Excellency Nana Kunedu J.J Rawlings, and is to be read on her behalf by Princess Amina J.J Rawlings, after which Elsie Duncan Williams will sing tribute.
Tribute by the wife, Nana Kunedu J.J Rawlings. It starts off with a poem. We started on the journey with wonder at the world. We skipped along with heads held high. Our flag of hope unfurled. Enthusiasm filled our days. As optimism grew, we had so many plans and dreams. Did some of them come true? But then our path grew steep and rough, and clouds obscured the sun. As problems raised their worried heads, we lost our sense of fun. But love was there through troubled times to ease the hurt away. With caring hands and gentle touch, it helped us through each day. So as the road goes winding on, step bravely mile by mile. Through sun and showers, hope and joy, the journey is worthwhile. By Iris Hesselden. Just as the poem states, we started on a journey, one that was free and easy in spirit. I was innocent and you were streetwise. There was so much I did not know and understand about the real life outside the wings and home of Mr. and Mrs. J.O.T. J.J, since I had lived a very protected life under their roof. I had to learn to understand how to be streetwise, move along with the flow of your friends and acquaintances, but it still did not sit well with me. It went against all the upbringing I had intensely received under the roof of my parents. After several trials, I decided a leopard never changes its spots. I was who I was based on family values. I decided I could not change for the sake of love. You finally understood me, to take me as I am. I was who I was, and there was nothing I could do about it. You sometimes called me snooty. I refused to accept that. I said it was based on my values. We had our ups and downs. However, our foundation of love for each other kept us together. We got married on January 29th, 1978. I recall you wanted us to elope and get married. Again, it did not sit well with me, and I said no. And you very quickly told me you were just tricking me to see my reaction. Family was very important to me. That is all I knew. So eloping without a wedding involving my family was out of the question for me. Our wedding remains a memorable day for me. It wasn't a military wedding because of your disillusionment with the military government and armed forces at the time. I do remember my father's words, quote, "There are several reasons we send girls to school. That when you get married, you do not make a man your pillow. You stand on your own and earn your keep," close quote. He advised you to encourage me in my endeavors because a working woman is a free woman. We were married and I learned to move into another family of just us. I tried. It was not easy, but I knew I had you as my support, so I pushed on. With the birth of our first child, your care and concern knew no bounds as you would spend all morning cleaning the house and doing all manner of chores before setting off for work, so I could rest and see to the baby. You took pride in your fatherly duties. There was no task too tiresome or bothersome for you, as you sought to take care of your young family. The scarcity of goods in the country at the time made things so difficult for everyone, and so you decided to name our daughter Zaneto, which meant, let the darkness end. The next few months had me in a constant state of fear, as you were arrested countless times by the military intelligence, culminating in the historic trial after the May 15th uprising. Life after June 4th, 1979 was never laid back. It was a roller coaster, and to quote Iris Hailsden, but then our path grew steep and rough and clouds obscured the sun. As problems raised their worried heads, we indeed lost our sense of fun. But love was there through troubled times to ease the hurt away, close quote. Our home went from our little oasis to an open refuge for all manner of people that believed in your cause. You were passionate and open-hearted, sharing all you had without a thought for yourself. After the arrival of our second child, Yaa Santwa, it felt like the nation was at its peak with hardship. In spite of this, Jerry, your gift of sharing knew no bounds. You would bring different people into our apartment, strangers and friends, for tea, coffee, and any meal you could lay your hands on in our kitchen. I tried countless times to hide the meager provisions we had for the children, but somehow you always discovered my stash, much to the mirth of your friends. After the 1981 December Revolution started, with all the difficulties of running a collapsed state, I saw less of you due to your schedule. When the restructuring and reconstruction took off, improvements to the national economy were clearly visible, and I would bring the girls over to visit on weekends and fortnightly. They never could hold back their excitement. When Amina and Kimathi were born, my work with the rural and urban communities intensified. You made me your eyes and ears to what was going on around the country. You trusted in the integrity and astuteness of our womenfolk to give a good assessment of the reality on the ground. With your help and support, we were able to make the fight for women and children's rights a reality with the passing of the interstate succession laws, family accountability laws, and all the other laws passed on behalf of Ghanaian women and children. They are a testament to your concern for your nation when you were made aware of the difficulties women were facing in the country. You never hesitated to help with the passing of laws to protect the vulnerable and the voiceless. From 1983 to 1992, I worked assiduously on empowering the Ghanaian women. I knew my passion to transform the lives of women could become a reality. I had dreams of improving the lives of the urban poor communities through women, but it still remained a dream, since I could do nothing without passing through the People's Defense Committees, who, by the way, totally disagreed with my style. I changed lanes like a sports car, pushing past two trucks driving side by side. I decided to move away from the urban areas and concentrate on rural women. I squeezed through and started working with rural women and rural communities from the north to the south, east to the west of Ghana. Reports got to you that I was disturbing the People's Defense Committees. After listening to my rationale, you gave me a thumbs up to continue. You helped me by assessing all my issues and getting laws passed to support the women and children in Ghana in many fields. With all the opposition I got within the PNDC government, only one male appointee supported me, BBD Asamoah, who urged me on with the women's programs I was doing. He explained to you my intentions and the importance of allowing me to develop the women in Ghana to become self-sufficient and economically sound, since they hold half of the sky. So their empowerment will reflect on how the children in Ghana will grow and develop as well. You expected me to prove my worth by refusing to help my organization financially and challenging me flatly to raise my own funds if I felt the cause was important enough. Today, I appreciate and understand the importance of separating my NGO women's movement work from government business. I went all around the world, boldly fundraising and shamelessly negotiating in different sectors for opportunities for our women and children in Ghana. Jerry, I know that God created us for each other. And today we make a formidable team, notwithstanding the ups and downs of life. We believed in each other and in our dream of making Ghana a country we could all be proud of. one to set the pace for our sub-region and continent. I dare say we did not do a bad job. As you worked assiduously on state matters, I concentrated on empowering the women and improving the quality of life for them. Irrespective of their origins or creed, we were a team fighting to transform a collapsed state into one of potential prosperity for all. You did your best, and I played my part in my own way. You always said you did not need titles to define you, so you remained Flight Lieutenant J.J Rawlings. You also said you did not need political titles to influence a party to do what is right and honest for Ghana. So for most, you remained chairman. To me, you were and always will be Jerry, my love, my life partner, my friend. You were for Ghana and then for me. So, I say farewell with the words of Rachel Wallace. He's the kaleidoscope of the rainbow, the chuckle of the stream, the lark's glad call, the lily's perfume. He is the bud on the branch, the rich gleam of the fox's fur, the shy gaze of a fawn, the small cloud caught in a crate of trees. He is the gold that crowns the daffodils, the whisper in the wind, the song in the rain, the story of the seasons. He is life and love, the beginning and the end, an hour, a day, an eternity. Rest in perfect peace, my love. May you watch over us all.
My wife, Nana J.J Rawlings, read by Princess Amina. Commander, this is the most...
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't
extremely well.
be afraid.
Very few
No,
people can read
I won't
their mommy's
be
tributes
afraid.
and read the way
Just
she
as long
did. Yes, she's done
as you
excellently well. Even me watching
stand by me.
and running commentary, I was
So
touched, and I'm touched.
darling,
So I'll say yes, she's done very well. She's proving that she's a strong princess.
By me, oh, stand by me, stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me, oh, stand by me, oh, stand by me, stand by me. If the sky that we look upon tumble and fall, and on the mountains to crumble to the sea, I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me, oh, stand by me, oh, stand by me, stand by me, darling, darling, stand by me, oh, stand by me, oh, stand by me, stand by me, darling, darling, stand by me, oh, stand by me, oh, stand by me, stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me, please stand Whenever you're in trouble, won't you stand by me? Please stand by me. Please stand by me.
The next tribute, that will be for children.
The next tribute is by the children, and it will be read by Honorable Dr. Senator J.J Rawlings, after which the National Democratic Congress will also read their tribute. Honorable Dr. Senator Rawlings.
The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Edmund Burke. Daddy, so much that should have been said, but the perpetual folly of mankind, always thinking there's more time. Well, like many others before us, the realization only hits home when befallen by such a tragedy. This has been so unexpected that translating anything to words has proven harder than we could have imagined. A lifetime of anecdotes. Where to begin? We'll start with the names. You were the earthly possessor of the name Jeremiah, whose mission covered some of the most turbulent and tumultuous decades in biblical history. Your father, James Ramsey, named you Jeremiah and tasked you with a similar fate. Your shoulders were strong enough to carry the weight. You knew your purpose and you accomplished it. You never faltered. Courageous and daring in every way, you stayed true to the essence of who you are till your last day. Daddy, you were a warrior, and with each one of us, you took pause to name, because resonating within you was an organic understanding of a name's sacred soul. She, or he, who is the earthly possessor of a warrior's name, is beholden to that name. You knew this. You did not name any of us after you to ensure that we would discover our own purpose in our name's sacred soul. A warrior's label was thus your gift, and reveled in each name lay your challenge to us to be watchers, protectors of creation, keepers, seekers of universal knowledge, to be courageous, never to falter, to stay grounded, to seek our purpose and remain true to it. Xanator, an ever-extraction name, a command meaning the darkness must cease. A name you made up and gave to your first child during the difficult times in Ghana as you hoped for an end to the corruption and economic hardship. Your second child, Ya Santua, of Asante extraction in modern-day Ghana. You named her after Nana Ya Santua of Ejisu, the Queen Mother who led her people to war against the British colonialists after the king of the Asante Kingdom was exiled. Your third child, Amina, a name of Arabic extraction. You named her after the warrior queen, Amina of Zaria, in modern-day Nigeria, the first woman to become a ruler in a male-dominated society. She expanded the territory of the Hausa people to its largest borders through conquest and opened up trade routes, amongst others. Kimathi, of Kikuyu extraction in Kenya. You named him after Dedan Kimathi, a Mau Mau military and spiritual leader who led his people in several uprisings that led up to the independence struggle against the British colonial rulers. Indeed, the names you chose for us epitomize your already concretized beliefs in Pan-Africanism. Perhaps it's no surprise that you created a bridge between members in the diasporan community and their ancestral home in Ghana in what became known as Panifest. Perhaps at our earliest memories of the giant, for many years we thought you were. Larger than life, adventurous spirit that was always the toast of every occasion, with your dashing lady love by your side. Oftentimes, we would only see you on weekends as you would traverse to the country non-stop on your nation-building crusade. On the occasions we would come by the castle during the week, you were always working but never tired, always heavily concerned with the country's affairs, but somehow making time to eat and exchange stories with your staff. You were always a man of the people, your people. They were a part of you. You wanted us to learn discipline, self-defense, but most importantly, a sense of community, as we sparred 3 times a week for many years with other club members in the Taekwondo club of the castle, with members from the Osu locality. You taught us all to drive, first on your lap, when our fingers could barely grasp the steering wheel, and with time in the Accra Plains and in Akuse over the weekends. You introduced us to water sports and, of course, your second love, flying. In all your lessons with us, there was no time like the present. To learn, to live, to experience the wonder and majesty of the Creator by conquering fear, mastering your skill, and trusting that you were created to do. You excelled at reinforcing that age was no restriction to boldness and adventure when you learned how to skydive after age 50. You were an artist at heart. Your portrait pencil sketches, but a preview of your natural talent. Your craftsmanship saw you recycle disposed bits of parachute and plane parts to construct all manner of furniture and decor in the house, reflective of yours and your wife's artistic abilities. You were highly intuitive and perceptive, and spent time with each of us separately and collectively to impart your lessons on everything, ranging from logic and reasoning problems and spirituality to global geopolitics and more. Whenever we asked you a question, you would ask us what we thought about the subject, in the end, allowing us to arrive at our own conclusions. At other times, you would just offer a candid opinion in a few concise statements and move on. You had the most wicked sense of humor and loved to make fun of people. One learned to develop a thick skin after years of exposure to it. When it was time for us to go to boarding school, you took pride in setting up your barber's shop on the compound of the house, skillfully cutting our hair with such ease that some of us, don't worry, I won't mention your name, thought that we could do just as well before hacking our cousin's hair to the most shocking yet hilarious spectacle. Later, the drive to boarding school was always your pride of place, taking Zaneto and Ya Santua to Wesley Girls. You and Mom would always ensure that you visited during the term, and in my case, Amina's case, I beg your pardon, you would regale her friends with stories about the time in Achimota and the mischief that you got up to. You mastered every aircraft that you flew, defying gravity with each flight. Your flying gave you the eyes of an eagle and added dimension to your perspective on the situation on the ground, literally. Even among the clouds, you were an artist. You were a master of the skies. Your skill as a pilot was so well and purposefully honed, yet never giving way to fearless recklessness, fully understanding that an element of fear is a requirement to anticipate danger. Never succumbing to the mundanity of life, you raised us to challenge the ordinary and to push beyond our comfortable boundaries. You taught us to stand up for those who could not, even at the risk of standing alone. We were never too young or too small to be privy to your thoughts, which you shared on world politics, on the inequity of the world economic system, on the plight of people of Africa. With every stage of our lives, you remain consistent with your mantra on life. Walk your path, know your purpose, live your life, make your mistakes and learn from them. Take ownership of your actions. In all this, be guided by your inner spiritual radar. Most importantly, never let your feet leave the ground. You always spoke with such pride about our valiant officers and men of the armed forces, the precision of our Air Force, and lamented angrily about the cowardice of those not willing to seek out truth or fight for what is just, not just for oneself, but for one's fellow Ghanaian in the face of adversity. And of course, let's not forget the incorruptible knights and guardians that stood by you, believing in your vision in Ghana. Whatever your faults, whatever your shortcomings, you always thought about the health and well-being of others before yourself. And it's such a shame that not every individual got to see or experience that about you. However, we take solace in the fact that enough hearts were touched by you, whether it was paying school fees of numerous students, telling your family to squeeze in the car while you gave countless strangers a lift on the motorway, or giving a very well-accomplished academic student a flight in one of the aircrafts. Since your passing, we have been inundated by testimonies of the number of people you supported. Your kindness knew no bounds. Soldier, warrior, father, grandfather, sage, friend, daddy, thank you for sharing your life with us. Thank you for teaching us to be and to do. Your work is done. You're free now, so walk briskly and purposefully as you do among the ancestors. You will always be our warrior garden.
The next tribute is by the National Democratic Congress, and it will be read by Alhaji Udu Yahya, after which the mass band will give us some martial music.
Tribute by the National Democratic Congress. The stature and principles espoused by Flight Lieutenant General John Rawlings make it difficult to eulogize him in just a few paragraphs. This is because our relationship with him as our founder, as an individual, and as a leader stretches over 4 decades. This tribute gives us the opportunity to say only a few things about this legend in Ghana's political history. President Rawlings was and still is an enduring institution that epitomized a value system that seeks to promote the good of society. His commitment to promote progress for all, especially the powerless, the voiceless, and the marginalized, is matchless. He hated exploitation of ordinary people by people who are powerful and rich. His towering image, charisma, and leadership style endeared him to all who were thirsty for justice, irrespective of their status in life, rich, poor, women and men, literate and non-literate, and irrespective of their religious persuasions. The attempt to restore the high professionalism and respect for which the Ghana Army is known the world over led to their arrest, that is he and his other ranks, and subsequent court-martial. We saw a manifestation of his selflessness, courage, his readiness to sacrifice his life for others, and intolerance for corruption when he asked the court to acquit all his other men standing trial with him. He offered to carry all the punishment for the insurrection alone. The court-martial was the trigger for the uprising of June 4th, 1979 uprising. Officers and junior ranks who saw his vision of cleaning up the rots in the Ghana Army, then under the leadership of the senior officers of the Ghana military, stormed the Bureau of National Investigation, where he was incarcerated, and freed him to lead the uprising for restoration of the dignity of the military and the country. The June 4th uprising was short-lived. Between June 4th to September 25th, 1979, because it was meant to halt the corruption then in the high places and seek accountability of persons in power. It was not the intention of the June 4th revolution to disrupt the program of return of the country to multi-party democracy. Hence, the country went through the elections as planned, and the civilian government was sworn in. His conviction that Ghana could progress only on the back of values and principles of June 4, and his determination and commitment that those values and principles be firmly integrated in the body politic of Ghana compelled him to lead some progressive officers and men to change the administration of the country on the 31st December 1981. At the advent of the 31st December revolution, Ghana's economy had completely run down. There was shortage of basic foods, basic necessities of life were non-existent, hospitals were empty with no basic drugs, and majority of Ghanaians, including highly trained professionals, had to leave the shores of Ghana because they could not make ends meet. In 1983, when the revolution was barely 1 year old, 2.1 million Ghanaians were deported from Nigeria. And he mobilized all resources of Ghana, including ships of the Black Star Line, Ghana Navy, the aircrafts of Ghana Airways, land transport through our borders, and formed the National Mobilization Program, the NMP, under the leadership of Commodore Steve Obimpe, to bring down Ghanaians who were deported back to Ghana. All the deportees were being received at the Aflao, Sankasi, and Tatale borders, Tema and Takoradi harbors, and Kotoka International Airport, with medical facilities, psychological counseling, and transport to the respective towns and villages of the deportees. He was committed to reverse the socio-economic state of the country from a country of shortages and queues to a country of plenty. Queues became a thing of the past, and most Ghanaian professionals began to return to help build. In respect of dealings in foreign exchange by Ghanaians, controlled prices and kalabule became things of the past. Inflation was brought down the import license system was eliminated and economic liberalization became, for the first time after independence, Ghana's economic system. Ghana's exports revenue began to soar, and diversification of the economy was also pursued vigorously. The economic and social infrastructure, which had largely broken down due to years of neglect, underwent serious rehabilitation. Under him, electricity from Akosombo was extended to all the then 10 regions of Ghana, the then 110 district capitals, and towns and villages, which accelerated development in Ghana. The road sector underwent expansion to the rural areas, and the ports in Takoradi and Tema saw rehabilitation and expansion, as well as our airports at Kotoka, Kumasi, and Tamale. The educational system was not left out. The grammar-type education, which was inherited from our colonial masters, was changed to the junior secondary school, JHS, and the senior secondary school, SHS. Public universities were increased from 3 to 6. The medical school in the north at UDS, University of Development Studies, was added to the existing 2 at Kolebu and Konfonochi. The policy of each region having a polytechnic was rolled out to address the middle manpower requirement for the industrial development of the country. Several political landmarks were achieved in the decade that the 31st December Revolution lasted. Among these are the reversal of the economic decline of the early 1980s, the restructuring of the state institutions, political stability, the mobilization of women under the leadership of Her Excellency Nana J.J Rawlings, the founding of the National Democratic Congress, the building of the foundations of the current Fourth Republic. Given that Rawlings meant the PNDC was a provisional administration, he ably guided and tailored the process of transition to the constitutional rule that began in Ghana in 1992 and has since endured. The process created the opportunity for the founding of the National Democratic Congress to help consolidate the values that J.J Rawlings had always espoused. Since his message over the decade resonated with the ordinary Ghanaian, he easily won the first and second general elections in the Fourth Republic with the party he founded, the NDC. Perhaps it is appropriate to state here that His Excellency President J.J Rawlings signed the party's manifesto with his blood at Ho to signify the deep faith he had in the party to the principles which he believed in. Indeed, many of the persons that served in these administrations of the AFRC and PNDC have held different positions in the NDC and are still loyal members of the party. The role of President J.J Rawlings as the founding father of the NDC is immortalized by Article 5 of the NDC Constitution, and it states, the founding father of the National Democratic Congress is Flight Lieutenant J.J Rawlings, upon whose vision and leadership the party was established. On the completion of his 2 terms as president in the Fourth Republic, President J.J Rawlings took up the position of the chairman of the Council of Elders of the party and did not stop advising and admonishing the party until his unfortunate passing on November 12, 2020. As a party, his death is difficult to bear, and a huge vacuum has been created that will be difficult to fill. But we are consoled by the fact that his legacy of establishing the most enduring democracy in the history of the Republic of Ghana bears testimony to the principles and values that pushed him into the political life of Ghana a little over 4 decades ago. Ghana, Africa, and the world have lost one of those rare leaders who did not put personal aggrandizement over service to the people and nation. President J.J. Rawlings was a leader and a true son of Africa, who was a peace builder in Africa. Ghana was the first country, the first African country to move into Liberia to stop the carnage during its civil war, then to Sierra Leone and Guinea with its own resources before the international community joined in. Under Rawlings, Ghana was in Rwanda during its civil war, where over 1 million Rwandese lost their lives. And when all the international community, including the United Nations, withdrew their personnel, President Rawlings ordered our troops under the command of General Anyidohu to stay on and save lives. The United Nations appointed him as a peacemaker in the Somali conflict to bring the warring factions in Somalian conflicts to the negotiating table. President Rawlings, we owe you gratitude for helping in the founding of the NDC, the National Democratic Congress. And we assure you that we will uphold your legacy as long as we exist as a political party. Your kind is rare, and we are proud that we have benefited from the fountain of your vision and wisdom. May God grant your soul eternal and perfect and peaceful rest, and may the earth gently lie on your remains. Fare thee well, our leader, our former president, our chairman of PNDC, and our chairman of Council of Elders, Hedenue, fare thee well. Thank you.
Party Hudu Yahya of the NDC, once Secretary General of the party, reading the tribute of Flight Lieutenant J.J Rawlings. He was one of the strong men that Rawlings used.
The next tribute is by the Ghana Armed Forces, and it will be read by Air Commodore Jacob Ashrifi, Chief Staff Officer of the Air Force Headquarters. Tribute by the Ghana Armed Forces.
Tribute to the late Flight Lieutenant J.J Rawlings, GH 1158, retired by the Ghana Armed Forces. The great Nelson Mandela said, and I quote, "When a man has done what he considers to be his duty to his people and country, he can rest in peace." I believe I have made that effort, and that is therefore why I will sleep for the eternity. Any keen observer will agree that these words of Nelson Mandela resonate equally with the life of His Excellency Flight Lieutenant J.J. Rawlings, whom we mourn today. The late Flight Lieutenant J.J Rawlings was commissioned into the Air Branch of the Ghana Air Force as a pilot officer on 25th January 1969, on completion of his basic military training at the Ghana Military Academy. Flight Lieutenant J.J Rawlings' passion for flying was very evident even as a very young officer, and the route to that realization was challenging. However, by dint of hard work and dedication, he successfully achieved that cherished objective. Indeed, he was adjudged the best graduating cadet and was awarded the much coveted Speedbird Trophy, an award which every flight cadet at the flying training school in Takoradi dreams of. His career as an Air Force officer began at the Air Force Base Takoradi as a squadron pilot. Over time, he distinguished himself as a fighter pilot, demonstrating his exceptional skills in aerobatics. In addition to flying duties, he was also the base adjutant. From June to December 1970, Flight Lieutenant J.J Rawlings was posted to the Communications Squadron of the Air Force Base Accra as a squadron pilot. Subsequently, he was reposted to the No. 1 Squadron of the Air Force Base Takoradi from December 1970 to January 1971. His passion for precision and adherence to flying procedures, coupled with his dexterity at flying, earned him an appointment with the renowned No. 4 Squadron from 1971 to June 1979. He simply loved his job as a pilot. His situational awareness and rare skills with cockpit management and the art of flying were exceptional. He was also known for his love for other machines, especially motorbikes. Whilst in active service, he accepted extra-regimental assignments willingly and always executed them to the required standards. He was very firm, fair, and straightforward on his principles, especially when it came to dealing with his subordinates. He exhibited good leadership qualities at the flight lines and at social gatherings. The late former president had an affable personality, and his social etiquettes were that of an officer and a gentleman. In addition, he was an ardent sportsman, and he particularly loved horse riding and boxing. He served on the Inter-Service Boxing Organizing Committee on a number of occasions, and as the officer in charge of the Ghana Armed Forces boxing team, led it to win several laurels, both at home and abroad. His involvement in the political history of Ghana is now legendary and hardly needs any repetition. He had a deep sense of patriotism and nationalism and was very considerate of others, no matter their status in society. His daunting spirit was unbreakable and could never be affected by any challenging task. He will be remembered as the longest-serving head of state of Ghana and the architect of the Fourth Republic, which has been the most enduring. Most of the current serving personnel of the Ghana Armed Forces never met Flight Lieutenant J.J Rawlings whilst he was in active service. They only know him from open sources as a revolutionary and a Democrat who has left an indelible mark on the Ghana Armed Forces and the nation. One little known fact is the amendment of the Armed Forces Regulations on Discipline, in which the trial by a sole commanding officer was replaced by the current disciplinary board. This was implemented by the late president and was informed by his empathy towards his subordinates and his sense of fairness. He was also the brain behind the formation of the 64 Infantry Regiment and the extension of 7 years from 18 to 25 years for soldiers until the recent further extension to 30 years. He was once both the Chief of the Defense Staff and the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, and was honorably released from the service on 14 September 1992. Your Excellency, your sudden departure has robbed the Ghana Armed Forces, the nation, and indeed Africa, of a treasured statesman, compatriot, nationalist, and a Pan-Africanist. Your personality accommodated a wide oeuvre, a quintessential lover of flying, a man with an unflappable revolutionary zeal, and an unabashed Democrat. You were brilliant, witty with a gift of eloquence, sarcasm, and humor, which came to you without effort or deliberation, thereby drawing crowds to yourself. You have shaped our national destiny, and you can now rest in peace. The words of William Shakespeare in his book, Julius Caesar, sum up the life of our departed president and statesman. Quote, "His life was gentle, and the elements so mixed in him that nature must stand up and say to all the world, this was a man," unquote. We are consoled that he is lying in the bosom of his maker until we meet again to soldier on in heavenly bliss. This tribute concludes with hymn number 896 of the Methodist hymn book, which says, quote, "Now praise we great and famous men, the fathers named in story, and who now, as then, reveals in man his glory. Rest in perfect peace."
Thank you very much, sir. The choir will sing.
very thought of you, it fills my heart with love. Jesus, you burn like wildfire, and I am overcome. Lover of my soul, hear me out today. With my every breath, I will love you. Lover of my soul, hear me out today. With my every breath, I will love you. Jesus, you are my Jesus, you are my
Lover of my soul,
Thank you very much, the choir and the National Symphony Orchestra. Brothers and sisters in the Lord, I have the singular honor to invite the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to read his tribute. Mr. President, you are invited. After this, our sister Irene Logan will sing. Thank you, sir.
Tribute to His Excellency J.J Rawlings, first President of the Fourth Republic. Farewell, Commandante. He burst onto the scene like a meteor, but a meteor that did not burst into flames and disintegrate like all meteors do. On the contrary, it remained potent until the very end of its life, leaving strong footprints in the sands of time. The turbulent occurrences of the 1970s in Ghana, the overthrow of the Second Republic and the Progress Party government by the military coup of 13th January 1972, the takeover of power by the Colonel Ike Champong-led National Redemption Council and subsequently the Supreme Military Council, the proscription of multi-party democracy, the professional strike of 1976, the March 1978 referendum on the proposal to entrench military rule through the Union government concept, the formation of the People's Movement for Freedom and Justice, PMFJ, to mobilize the no vote in the referendum, the consequences of the vote, and the conspiracy to abduct the Electoral Commissioner, the palace coup that removed General Kutu Champong from office and ushered in General Fred Akufo in his stead, culminated in the emergence of Flight Lieutenant J.J Rawlings in the political space of our country. Charismatic, energetic, fearless leader. Such were the attributes ascribed by many Ghanaians to the man, J.J Rawlings, the young Air Force officer who announced his presence in Ghana's politics by the abortive coup of May 15, 1979, and was sentenced to death for his part in the failed effort. He gave at his trial an important insight into his character when he stood up before the military tribunal to accept sole responsibility for the attempt and to request the NCOs who were being tried with him to be absolved and freed by the tribunal. The great events that were to define his character and career followed quickly after his trial, conviction, and sentence. 3 weeks later, whilst awaiting execution of his sentence, he was dramatically freed from prison by the insurgents of what has come to be known as the June 4th uprising, when junior officers and other ranks of the Ghana Armed Forces banded together to throw out the Supreme Military Council and install the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, AFRC, headed by Flight Lieutenant J.J Rawlings. Thereafter, J.J. to all and sundry in Ghana. It is no wonder that he came to regard June 4th as, quote, that defined day, unquote. He re-emerged as chairman of the Provisional National Defense Council, PNDC, when he led a successful coup that brought the short-lived Third Republic to an end on 31st December 1981. The tumultuous and at times lawless incidents of the AFRC 3-month tenure of office and of the early years of PDNC rule are matters of record, winning him passionate admirers, vociferous critics, and determined lifelong enemies, all at the same time. He was the longest-serving ruler in our history, 11 years as a military leader and 8 years as a twice-elected civilian president, making 19 years in all. He was fortified in his work by his union with his celebrated consort, the equally dynamic Nana Konadu Agyeman Rawlings, who proved to be a sturdy pillar and invaluable companion to the very end, and who bore him 4 children, the eldest of whom, Zaneto, is continuing his tradition of public service. It was no secret that the relation that existed between the two of us, right from the heady days of 1979 through to my brief period in exile, his assumption of office as the first president of the Fourth Republic, the historic Kunipreko demonstrations, my period as Attorney General and Minister for Foreign Affairs in the Kufuor administration, to be my elected the 2008 NPP presidential candidate, was one of open animosity. We did not see eye to eye. However, with time, things changed. We came to see value in each other and understood to a very large degree our respective perspectives. One thing we had in common was our mutual commitment to public service. My visit to his Ridge residence in 2012 signified the easing of tensions between us, leading to a friendship that lasted for the better part of some 8 years. Indeed, when the Ghanaian people in 2016 reposed for the first time their confidence in me in the elections of that year, one of the first persons on whom I paid a courtesy call was His Excellency J.J Rawlings. From my entry into office, right up to the day he was called by his maker, he remained a good friend and a repository of sound advice. I knew that in moments of difficulty in my presidency, I could count on his considerable wealth of experience and knowledge. On those occasions, he came through for me. There was a symbolic gesture he advanced to me at the funeral of his late mother, Madam Victoria Agbotui, held at the forecourt of the State House on 24th October 2020. It was to be our last time together. He was called up by the clergy to receive special prayers as the only surviving son. He told the men of God to wait and call for me to walk up to join him to receive the special prayers. He whispered to my ears as I stood beside him. I reminded them that they should pray for you also, because you had also lost your mother. I was touched by this. It is for good reason that his well-known, oft-cited ideals of probity and accountability, in which he invested a great deal of his political capital, have been enshrined in the Constitution of the Fourth Republic, and together with freedom and justice, the words of our nation's motto, constitute the foundational principles on which social order is to be developed in Ghana. There are many who acknowledge him as the founder of the Fourth Republic, a republic which has proved to be the most enduring and stable in our history, and which has witnessed 8 successive elections, 3 peaceful changes of government from one party to another, and 5 presidents. For all his revolutionary antecedents, he set in 2001 the enviable precedent which has since guided our country of respecting the 2-term limit of the presidency and superintending the orderly transfer of power to his democratically elected successor. Whilst he was with us, he respectfully declined an offer I made to him in 2017 to have the University of Development Studies Tamale, UDS, which he personally helped establish, named after him. His reason was that, in adhering to a long-standing principle, he did not want to have any national monument or facility named after him. 2 days after his passing, at the 21st congregation of UDS, I expressed my strongest convictions, in spite of his reservations, that such an honor should be accorded him. I am glad that this has found favor with his family, and the necessary formalities will be carried out to achieve this. That is, the J.J Rawlings University of Development Studies, Tamale. Such is the measure of the man that the days associated with his political intervention in Ghanaian history, i.e. 15th May, 4th June, 31st December, and 7th January, are now significant days in the calendar of the nation. But the most significant of them all must be 7th January 1993, the day that ushered in the Fourth Republic. It is in recognition of this that I decided to commemorate 7th January as Constitution Day on the national calendar. It is perhaps the greatest tribute a grateful nation can offer to the men and women whose efforts led to the establishment of the Fourth Republic. It is my hope and prayer that he remains forever the longest-serving head of state in our nation's history, for that would mean that the Fourth Republican Constitution and its enshrined term limits have endured. His actions were not limited to Ghana only. The African nationalist that he was, he held unwavering positions on all matters concerning the wider continent of Africa, especially when they involved foreign interference and control of Africa's destiny, and was quick to voice his views on them. His chairmanship of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government set the example whereby virtually all his successors, John Agyekum Kufuor, John Dramani Mahama and I, the second, fourth, and fifth presidents, respectively, of the Fourth Republic, have been honored by their peers with the occupancy of that high office, reinforcing the Pan-African vocation, which has been an essential element of Ghanaian public policy since independence. I called him Comandante because of his admiration for the famous Latin American revolutionaries, Fidel Castro, Hugo Chavez, and Daniel Ortega, a nickname which seemed to please him. I believe that history on balance will be kind to him and will render a positive verdict on his contribution to the evolution of our nation and the entrenchment of its democratic institutions and culture. It is entirely appropriate and fitting that he should receive a state funeral with full honors to express the gratitude of the nation for that contribution. My wife Rebecca and our children join me in expressing our sincere, heartfelt condolences to his beloved wife, Nana Konedu, his children, Ezanato, Yasantua, Amina, and Kimathi, and his entire families for their great loss of one of the outstanding figures of modern Ghanaian history, a man whose sense of humor was truly infectious. Comandante, rest and abide in perfect peace in the bosom of the Almighty until we all meet again on the last day of the resurrection. Farewell, God bless, and thank you for all your help.
His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, as tribute to the man he called the Commandante, Flight Lieutenant J.J Rawlings. Kafi, a tribute loaded with heartfelt gratitude and recognition of support that a human being can give to a human being.
A divine service. This is a divine service. And so I'll request all of us to be quiet so that we bow before our God. Thank you for responding. God bless you. Ari. May I still request that the service is not over. Those playing traditional drums, please, this is the church. You stop it, or else I'll call the military police on you. Two scripture readings will be made. The first one will be done by Mrs. Jose Rosemond Anyai Benam, and the second one by Reverend Father Lieutenant Colonel Kofi Kemeche. First reading.
The first scripture reading from the book of Psalm, chapter 90, verse 1 and 2. Psalm 90, verse 1 and 2. Please, let's listen to the word of God. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. Amen. Here ends the reading. Thanks be to God.
Shall we please rise for the gospel? Shall we stand, please, for the gospel? A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus came to Nazareth, where he had grown up, and went according to his custom into the synagogue on the Sabbath day. He stood up to read and was handed a scroll of the prophet Isaiah. He unrolled the scroll and found the passage where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring glad tidings to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to captives and the recovering of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim a year acceptable to the Lord." Rolling up the scroll, he handed it back to the attendant and sat down. And the eyes of all in the synagogue looked intently at him. He said to them, "Today, this scripture passage is fulfilled in your hearing." Amen. Shall we please be seated?
To preach the sermon for this divine service is Right Reverend Kofi Osabute, Methodist Bishop of Accra. Shall we therefore stand once again and sing the first two verses of the third hymn, "When Peace Like a River"? The band and the choir will lead us. May we stand, please.
Amen.
Let us kindly resume our seats. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred in their bows. So let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus had told you Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously has Caesar answered it. Yeah, under the leave of Brutus and the rest. For Brutus is an honorable man. So are they all honorable men. Come I to speak in Caesar's funeral. He was my friend, faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious. And Brutus is an honorable man. He had brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffers fill. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? When that the poor have cried, Caesar wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. You all did see that on the Lupercal, I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and sure, he is an honorable man. I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here am I to speak what I do know. You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him? Oh, judgment, thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Bear with me. My heart is in the coffin there with Caesar, and I must pause till it comes back to me. Students of English literature will know the source of this oration. Your Excellencies, our political, social, religious, and traditional people of God in God's image, created to reflect His glory, irrespective of our color, creed, or cult, to be asked to preach at the funeral as one's head of state, particularly His Excellency J.J Rawlings, is humbling and challenging. We are grateful to God for this opportunity, and we also thank the Family and Planning Committee for this honor. We draw strength from all of you who have come here to witness this occasion, and more importantly, we draw strength from the triune God, who in our religious tradition, the Christ. Many voices Her Excellency Nana Kunedu Ajima Rawlings, my Honorable Senator Rawlings, and the nuclear extended. As we reflect on the life of His Excellency J.J Rawlings, we can all come to varied conclusions depending on our viewing point. As someone has said, your viewpoint depends on your point. From general social media, and hated, devoted to, and considered wise, foolish, viewed as compassionate, and viewed as callous. This was as a man so difficult to wrap up. In the November 21, 2020 edition of the Ghanaian Times, columnist Professor Nana Asikfi Kodua wrote a piece titled Post-Mortem, part of which we quote. All the flurry and interest about former President John Rawlings have simmered, or may have by now. So far, the aggregate is overwhelmingly incendiary, kind of Shakespearean. The good is often interred with their bones. The significant missing factor is none is possessed with absolute truth about Papa J, unless and until the piece of his own long-heated bioscripts become a book, Rawlings remains his generation's huge, never thoroughly phantom, and will daily excite research, frenetic and studious. That alone is a compelling legacy. Rival in the sense that there is so much for and against him in that hot, definitive, very impartial optimisms and conclusions. He struck you with awesome presence, and in your struggle to decide, the future makes him an enigma, unquote. This was a man whose late mother saw him as other-centered. From the funeral service brochure, we read, I know him. He would never like to build a house for himself, so I will build one for him. From his ancestry, his people, we are sure, will use one word for him, Numedi. I seek good things. This was a man who, to his dear wife, Nana, was thrust into leadership position, not because he wanted to, but because social circumstances compelled and propelled him into it. Here is how Nana Kunedu Agyeman Rawlings put it in her book, It Takes a Woman, page 12, unquote. At this stage, what we knew was that Jerry himself was uncertain about his own position in his emerging revolution that had been led by the ordinary ranks of Ghana armed forces. He certainly was not the leader of the uprising. His release from prison had been the focal point throughout the revolt and into leadership pushing, unquote. This, for us, is the context in which we need to see the Johnny Lawrence factor in the history of our dear country. That he named his first daughter, Zaneto, let's get it correct, pressman, it's not Zinato. It's not Zinato, it is Zaneto. Zaneto, meaning darkness must cease, should perhaps give us a perspective of his philosophy of life. Was Jerry a saint? Certainly not. Jerry was a sinner who took a risk to attempt the wrongs, to right the wrongs of a society as he perceived them. Being a sinner, then, one can understand and forgive those excesses of the regime he led. As we reflect on his life and legacy, we should at least be thankful to God for the governance system we now all are enjoying, though there is much more to be done to improve it. On the occasion of Jerry's departure, it is appropriate that we all pause to reflect on the theme, the stewardship of leadership and power. We anchor our Bible text in the passage read from Luke chapter 4, verses 18 to 19. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Luke 4, 18 to 19. Again, in Mark 10:45, we read, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. What clearly is leadership? Broadly speaking, leadership is the art combining ideas, people, things, time, and faith to achieve predetermined objectives. Leadership in this sense means the exercise of power. A leadership expert, Peter Drucker, gives us another insight into leadership, which finds relevance to our team. Leadership is lifting a person's vision to higher heights of a person's performance to a higher standard, the building of a personality beyond his normal limitations. What is stewardship? Stewardship is the recognition that we owe our life, what we owe, our time, talent, treasure, belong to a sovereign creator, and that God expects us one day to account for this. So what is stewardship of leadership? Stewardship of leadership is the recognition that one owes one's authority and power and leadership to God. If all authority, including civil power, derives from God, then it is important that those who wield power do so in trust. People in power are trustees in the sense that the power they wield has been given for specific purposes, namely to serve the human community in view of the realization of divine norms, the biblical imperative. According to the Christian Bible, civil rulers are God's servants for the good of the governed. Politicians and office bearers are to execute their judiciary, executive, legislative, or administrative offices only for the good of the citizens. This fact holds true for traditional and religious office holders. In the Bible's perspective, power, understood as a given authority, is to exercise leadership, is exemplified in and through our Lord Jesus Christ, who says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me, Matthew 28:18. A good stewardship of power in the sense of delegated authority then is defined in the terms of its consonance with power as our Lord Jesus Christ has released it. The leadership of Jesus. In describing his mission concerning the kingdom of God, Jesus uttered the words we have read from Luke 4:18-19. The context of Luke 4:18-19 suggests that Jesus was looking an alternative power style and leadership style against the norms of the time. Some refer to this passage as Jesus' manifesto. According to this passage, the rule of God in Jesus Christ brings wholeness, justice, and compassion to the people. The people experience power in the sense of the rule of God in Christ as good news. The oppressed has release. The hopeless has hope. It comes as a proclamation of the Lord's jubilee in ever uploading. We should emphasize that the rule of God in Jesus Christ has everything to do with social, political, and economic life now, and so also for religious and traditional life. The point is, any political or religious or traditional authority which is worth its salt must conform to the liberating power of the kingdom of God as revealed in Jesus Christ. Abuse of power is the outcome of lack of realization that human authorities, be they civil or religious, derive from God and are subservient to him. In summary, in this short manifesto, Jesus says clearly that leadership is understood as the exercise of power. It's not self-serving, but service to humanity. He made this statement clearly. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. For those who worked and walked closely with His Excellency, J.J Rawlings, could they not sincerely testify, his human failings aside, he fought to demystify power and send it down to where it really belongs, to the people. And for this, he, Jerry, was prepared to be misunderstood, misrepresented, betrayed, and vilified, as he shared in some of his quiet moments with some of us. Once again, we quote the words of Professor Nana Asef-Kodua about Rawlings. He came to the job a neophyte, but he learned the art of leading at one level and governing, neither weakening his grip on power and scared of criticism for his ability to follow through. We quote from John Jerry's own words: whatever form of government we adopt as a people to suit our peculiar circumstances, our basic tenet is our common yearning and concern for every individual. For politics, listen to that carefully. For politics, whatever its color must be an avenue to serve our people. J.J Rawlings. For clarity, one is not comparing Jesus with Jerry John or Jerry John with Jesus, because we have already pointed out that J.J. was a sinner who sought to serve his country, simply. But the issue here, as we bring this discussion to a close, is not about J.J. It is about all of us who are living now, because death is the experience of the living. Death is the experience of the living. Professor Nana Asef-Kodua notes, in the depths of our mosque, the sage advised that you don't hoist or wave a white flag even on the death of your most deadly enemy. This bears repetition. In the depths of our mosque, the sage advised that you don't hoist or wave a white flag even on the death of your worst enemy. How do we evaluate our own leadership and exercise of power in the light of the Jesus paradigm, which I have sought to labor was maybe, or perhaps, or in one way, exemplified also in Sinner Jerry? Papa J, with all his force, has served his generation. For those of us living, we have been exposed in this sermon to the stewardship of leadership or power, as exemplified in the life and mission of Jesus Christ. In Jesus and throughout the Bible, we draw these concluding statements to guide all of us who will live after Papa J. 1, the ultimate power is God, and not the political, institutional organization called the state or the religious organization called by whatever name. 2, power, be it political, traditional, or religious, is delegated. 3, the human wields power, but only in the sense of stewardship. 4, power, political, traditional, or religious, is delegated for constructive purpose to the good of humanity. And this must be seen. 5, finally, stewardship of power involves accountability to those over whom power is exercised, and ultimately before God and to God. The holders of power must not lose sight of the fact that the day of accountability before God will surely come. It begins with the people, it will end with God. 1 Corinthians 5:9-10 says that we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body, according to that he had done, whether it be good or bad. My fathers, my mothers, brothers and sisters, J.J., His Excellency, has ended his work. Those of us living have the responsibility. Are we prepared for this accountability? My submission is that if we submit to the authority of Jesus, he will give us the new perspective to be better stewards of leadership and power entrusted to us now in our time. And we can be proud of our leadership and legacy, no matter where we are serving now. And we can leave a legacy that we all can be proud of, and God can be also proud of. The choice is ours. What shall it be for you? Olupa, JJ, Yawo Jugwa, Togbi, Afo Jerry, Hadanyue.
Thank you very much, Right Reverend Kofi Osabote. A song by Joe Metal, after which wreaths will be laid. Joe Metal.
Yes, nyamia oyo wa weni bibi aransu no yeah. Ono kasa atinyina yeti bibi aransu no yeah. Say yes nyamia oyo wa weni bibi aransu sing ono kasa atinyina from bibi abansuliye. Say it again, say yes nyamia hayo amani bibi abansuliye. Sing ono kasa atinyina from bibi abansuliye. Oti chance ni fasu se redeema enunti yensuro shi yesum nyamia hayo amani bibi abansuliye. No, yeah. Say it again, sing. Oh, you're with me. Machinkwa. For he has done so very much. So what shall I render unto Jehovah? For he has done so very much for me. He's done so much for me. Lord, I cannot tell it all. Say, if I have 10
For he has done so very much for me. Nara, nara, say. Nare, kelemo. Nara, nara, nara. Nare, kelemo. Oh, kaya hunti yen suro bribi nyami tumfu yeyi waye dada. Let me just say one more time. Oh, kaya hunti